Hey everybody, Brenna Baucum, Collective Wealth Planning. Today I'm going to walk you through how to complete your Oregon PERS OPSRP retirement application packet. So I'm going to show you how do we take this 62 some odd pages that you receive, not that I counted them, in the mail, and how do we get it down to the 5 or 6 pages that you need to pop into the envelope and get on its way to PERS to retirement. So if you are OPSRP, you're in the right place. If you're Tier 1, Tier 2, don't worry, I will complete a video with this same instruction for you at some point in the future. Okay, so if you are ready, grab that big old thick packet of information and let's get started. All right, I want to start by taking a look at a couple of the things that came in your packet. The very first thing you're going to see in there is the pre-retirement guide. This is a big, thick document with a couple of staples in it. And this can be a really good resource if you have yet to decide on what type of pension that you want to take from your OPSRP program, assuming you are vested, and what you want to do with your IAP, your individual account program. So if you have yet to make those decisions, this can be a good resource. PERS can be a good resource. I wrote a blog on how to interpret and make sense of your retirement benefit estimate, and I will link to that. I also recorded a video about it. I'll link to that up here in the corner. So if you still have questions about how you're going to claim your pension, what you're going to do with your IAP, stop this video and go check out that one, and then come back to this when you're ready. So good resource there, but I'm not going to go into a lot of detail of what's in this for time purposes. Instead, I'm going to skip over to the application itself and walk through this. You received a number of other individual pieces of paper in here, and I will reference to those as we go through this application. So applicant information, fill out your brass tack info. Make sure you're using your full legal name in here. If you, like me, hyphenated your last name, you you have to remember when to use that hyphenated, and this is one of those situations. The PERS ID, if you have it handy, that will just help expedite processing of things. Make sure your social security number is on the forms where requested. I know it can be uncomfortable to fill that out and pop it in the mail, but that is what PERS requires of us. Down here, effective retirement date, so the month and the year. Citizenship information, that's pretty straightforward. There's a section here around working after retirement. So go ahead and if that seems like something you're going to do, make sure you're checking that information out. I'm not going to go into detail on it here because after all, this is a retirement application. I assume you want to retire. The receipt of the federal tax information disclosure. This is one of the other forms that's in your packet. So it looks like this. It's got a staple in the upper left-hand corner. And essentially this document helps to summarize what happens to you from a tax perspective, depending on what choice you make for your IAP and your pension amount. So the application itself is saying, we want to make sure, PERS wants to make sure that you received this document and you understand the tax consequences of your decision. And of course, with any retirement planning, I really highly recommend that you, before you finalize this decision with PERS, that you've walked through these choices with a CPA, with your financial planner, to make sure that we're understanding the consequences of whatever choices we're making. So by clicking this box, essentially you're just saying, yep, I received it, I understand. Let's go ahead and waive that 30-day period and PERS, get on it and send me my pension. Otherwise, they're going to delay that by 30 days, mail you another copy of this document to ensure that you've received it. So place for signature down here. Page 2, again, you want to make sure you fill out this information at the top. If you use this fillable form that you can download from their website rather than the paper form they sent you, it will auto-populate that, which is kind of nice. You can get, especially with the Tier 1, Tier 2 application, this one isn't quite as bad, but you can get a sore hand from filling this out by hand. The next section here is around your pension options. So for OPSRP, we have 5 different choices here. Again, I'm not going to go into the detail of what these choices mean, but if you need to do that, you can check out that other video where I walk through them. No matter what pension choice that you choose, you're going to want to make sure you name a beneficiary below. And if you're choosing single life only, you might think, why do I have to do that? Well, PERS answered that question because that's what I thought too. And they answered it right here where they said, this is just in case something happens to you between the time you're filing this application and your retirement date. So that's what that would be used for. Otherwise, this beneficiary information is going to be used for your pension upon your passing. Next up is the verification of age. So this is an additional document. You need to make a copy, I recommend front and back, of your driver's license or your ID and include that with this application. If you are in partnership, you need to do the same thing here if you're selecting one of these survivorship option benefits. So something to make a note of, making a copy of your ID and your spouse's if needed. The next section down here is for your notary. So if you have an advisor, many advisors, myself included, are notaries and can help fill this out for you. If not, of course, you have to go to the bank or P.O. box or something like that. It's pretty straightforward. You're just notarizing and confirming the fact whether you are married or single. And if you are married, you need to have your spouse sign and have both signatures notarized. All right, next page is the decision you're going to make around your IAP. So there are 6 different options you have here, and I'm going to cover what I usually see happen. So I just mentioned this earlier that for the most part, most of the client families I work with have decided I'm going to receive my PERS pension, I'm going to receive Social Security income, and maybe if you're in partnership, your partner is receiving some of that as well. And rather than creating a distribution plan with the IAP that's going to force income over time in these various installments or years, the clients decide, you know what, I want to have more choice over when I take those out. So the best way to keep your choices open is to sign up for a one-time lump sum distribution as a rollover. So you'll click this box here, and down here, you can see what I mean by rollover. So we're saying roll over my distributions, 100% of it to a traditional IRA. If you do this, again, this is a non-taxable event. So then you have choices, at least until you get to required minimum distribution age, you will have choices around when to take that money out and utilize it and then therefore be taxed on it. All right, the bottom part is asking how do you want PERS to make out the check for the IAP? And if you are moving forward with this rollover idea that we're discussing here into a traditional IRA, you're going to want to have them make out the check payable to your custodian. So that might be Schwab, that might be Fidelity, that might be Vanguard, wherever it is that you keep your IRA. So it'll say the name of your custodian, FBO is for benefit of your name, and the account number of your traditional IRA. So some custodians require that. Schwab is one of them. So one thing to note is that PERS estimates about 120 days from your effective retirement date to when this check will be distributed. And this check is not going directly to your custodian. It is coming to your home address. So it's a good idea for all of my clients. I set them a reminder and say, hey, it's been about 120 days since your retirement date. You should be receiving that check for the rollover pretty soon. When you do, we need to pop it in the mail to Charles Schwab as soon as possible. There's a 60-day limit to making sure that rollover doesn't become a taxable event. So that's an important element to keep in mind. You also have an option here. If you have an Oregon Savings Growth Plan, you can roll it into that instead of your traditional IRA. Again, as you can see on here, it says you have to be a participant in the Oregon Savings Growth Plan before this paperwork goes through to be able to do that. A final option on the rollovers here is to put it into another deferred comp or employer plan. And if you do that, that's when you have to fill out the direct transfer rollover acceptance form, which is another piece of paper that is in your packet. So here that is, again, if you are not rolling this directly into another employer plan, you do not need to complete this form. I want to quickly look at these other IAP options. I don't want you to think I'm blowing past them because they are choices to you, certainly. 5, 10, 15, 20 years or over your lifespan, you can have these choices. These two, the one-time lump and the 5-year, are rollover eligible. So again, if you want to put them into your IRA, you can do that. Any of these others are coming directly to you and would be taxable in the year received. If you complete any of these, you can see there's an additional form requested. Another form that it's referencing here is the W4R lump sum withholding. So you can find that one in your packet as well. So if you are choosing to take your IAP as a lump sum, meaning it's going to be taxable to you, you need to fill out this form. So it's going to apply some default withholding and give you some choices about additional withholding you may want to do. But again, I don't see very many clients make that choice because of the tax consequences to doing so. So for the most part, what I see people doing is rolling this over into an IRA so that they have more choice in retirement. All right, on to the next page. We are on page 3 of our application now, and it is asking for beneficiary designations. So if you are rolling yours over, this is required, right? We have to do this. If you're rolling yours over, this is just for that short period of time if something happens to you between when this application is processed and when the rollover is completed. So if you click standard, the standard beneficiary designation is your spouse first, then your kids, then your parents, then any brothers or sisters that you may have. So that's kind of what that standard definition beneficiary designation means. If you want it to do something other than that, you'll click on specific, and then you'll fill that information out down below. All right, there's a place for a signature at the bottom of this page, and that's the end of the application. So despite this intimidating packet, there's only 4 pages of the application that you need to complete. But there are a couple of other pages in here that need to be sent in with it. So one of them, very important, is how you get paid for your pension. You want to make sure you fill this one out. So this sets up a line of communication between PERS and your bank account to be able to deposit your regular OPSRP check into. So if that's a checking account, you want to make sure you attach a voided check. If it's a savings account, you don't need to do that. Down below, there's a place for your signature, and if you are married, your partner's signature. And your partner is basically saying, if something happens to you, I promise to let PERS know and not keep collecting your check. Another document you're going to find is withholding for your pension payments. So these are for your OPSRP pension payments. There is both a federal and a state withholding form here, and it gives you some information here about what they do with this information. So when you mark that you are single or married but withholding at a higher rate, they will do some automatic choices around withholding for your pension. Oftentimes I see tax planning in the first year or 2 of retirement is a moving target a little bit. So we're working with client CPAs, we're talking about required distributions, we're talking about Social Security. Things are changing in our income world, in our tax world. And so oftentimes what we'll do is say, let's have PERS go ahead and do their standard withholding without putting in too much additional. And then we can talk to our CPA on whether or not it makes sense to tweak this. Are we paying estimates? Do we need to tweak what we're going to have withheld from Social Security over time? So again, it's really a joint decision oftentimes between you, your advisor, and your CPA. We talked a little about the direct transfer rollover acceptance form, so I won't go into detail about that. The last form you're going to find in here is the W4R OPSRP lump sum withholding. So we talked about this IAP lump sum withholding form if you wanted to take your IAP out as cash. There's one in here for the OPSRP too. So if you wanted to tell PERS that you didn't want a pension but instead wanted to take out a lump sum for your OPSRP pension, this would be the document to do that. It's always interesting to me though because there's no option for lump sum on the application that they have for OPSRP. So either way, this should not be a form that you need. As you can tell, there's a lot of nuance in this retirement packet. There's a lot of choices to make, and everybody wants to make the right choice. And to make matters more confusing, the pension and the IAP part of your retirement are just that, a part of it. You may also have Oregon Savings Growth Plan through the state, or you may have some IRAs or some 401ks from previous employers out there that need to be accounted for. Certainly Social Security and when and how to claim that is going to be part of retirement planning. Retirement planning is so big and it encompasses so many things. And that's just you. So if you're in partnership, it gets even more convoluted and confusing. So it's naturally how we live our lives and how we save in these silos over time. And it can be very hard to have confidence that you're making the right choice on any one of those silos until you see how they all work together. So if you are looking for a thought partner and a planner to help you make sense of it and put that puzzle together, I warmly welcome a conversation. Thanks for watching.